Rick and TC were sulking like schoolgirls about their renewed loves with Susie and Mahina, respectively, on yet another day that started at La Mariana. Juliet began to wonder if she and Thomas were spending too much time together. This is an issue that many viewers will find important because it's one that couples who live and work together must deal with. Magnum noticed Higgins's question for what it was, a trap. Luckily, he had an escape route soon after, since his co-workers had 2 cases to handle. Given that Juliet ended up with Jin, she ought to have been cautious about her wishes. For once, rather than pursuing another get-rich-quick scam, Jin was acting in Mrs. F's best interests as his Jin dog client and friend. Is Jin truly back this quickly? It's best to use recurrent characters sparingly. As a reformed con artist, Jin is naturally wary of people. Margaret treated Jin like the strange little man he is, treating him imperiously when they first met, which made Jin snarky. It's difficult to understand how Jin felt so connected to a lady who had been unaware of his true name for more than a year. It's written on his military t-shirt. His claim that she would never leave the town without telling him is also true. Higgins had good reason to doubt Jin's intuition. His specialty has always been exaggeration. For this reason, there is a folk tale about a boy who screamed out for help. Juliet checked Margaret's record, and it turned up clean. However, as was eventually established, she had probably already pulled off this swindle under a number of different aliases. Jin was determined to show that his assessment of Margaret was accurate. He mostly demonstrated that breaking into houses wasn't his forte, as evidenced by the amusing scenario in which Pippin had to use his rope toy to pull him through the doggy door. Jin would have benefited from having a fully charged phone. Then he may have captured Margot executing her con on camera. Furthermore, if his phone hadn't died, Higgins could have located him far more easily. However, Jin was not very good at planning. Even so, he did a good job of improvising while attempting to keep one step ahead of Margaret, particularly since Pippin was always wanting to play with his friend. Though it was a dubious decision, hiding in her car's trunk allowed him to obtain the information he needed. TC wasn't seen much in this episode, but he was still able to assist in saving his tiny friend. Does Higgins carry a sniper gun in her car, or was that something TC had hanging around Island Hoppers? On Magnum Pie Season 5 Episode 10, after getting shot inside his place of business, it would be wise for him to stockpile extra weapons. It was wonderful to see that Mrs. F, who had looked dead at first, was actually suffering from a gunshot wound. The drawback was that Jin's sudden girlish shriek revealed where he was hiding. Rick was also largely missing, showing up in very few scenes. That's because the episode was directed by Zachary Knighton, who had not directed a film since Happy Endings. In a more dramatic plot, Thomas and Katsumoto joined forces to defeat a conceited wealthy man, always a noble objective. It seemed inevitable that Gordon's termination from HPD following the events of Magnum Pie Season 4 Episode 20 would come back to haunt him. It's shocking how long it took for some shady defense lawyer to use it against him. Thankfully, Katsumoto has Thomas and Juliet, 2 individuals who are skilled at operating beyond the law. Since he was instructed to avoid the case, he was at a loss for options. Magnum deserves recognition. He walked up to question Tate directly after his effort to view the security film from the night of the murder at the Cigar Club failed. Tate saw through the gambit and ended up getting a restraining order for his attempts, but it was a commendable attempt. Because of the limitations they were in, all they could do was flip over rocks to see what crawled out. Which takes us to John Lovitz's sleazy private investigator Pierre. Pierre's intelligence turned the case around, revealing that the Walkers had twice paid off a gardener, once in 2003 and again following Tate's incarceration for his brother's murder. Acting as many characters in Peter Lentov's 2 Hawaii-based reboots of Magnum P.I. and Hawaii 5-0 gives Lovitz a unique distinction. When they approached the gardener after learning that a Walker maid had vanished in 2003, they managed to get him to acknowledge that Tate had paid him off for seeing the woman accidentally killed. Digging up a patio was all that was required to bring Tate's victims the punishment they rightfully earned. With Jin, didn't Juliet exercise a great deal of restraint? What's your opinion on the Magnum Katsumoto team-ups? Do you prefer that Thomas and Juliet work on distinct cases? Post a comment below.